Hey all, today I'm going to be replacing the spark plugs on my wife's 2011 4Runner Gen 5. It just hit 120,000 miles, and that's when Toyota recommends replacing the spark plugs. They're iridium tip spark plugs, so they can go that long without any problems. And yeah, we've gotten to 120, no check engine lights, no stuttering, no problems at all with drivability. This thing is a beast. I highly recommend 4Runners. Fantastic vehicles. We have had zero problems with this outside of routine maintenance since we bought it brand new from the dealership in 2011. So when you get to the 120,000 mile mark, if you take it to the dealership, they're going to recommend a whole slew of services, most of which, in my opinion, aren't really necessary. It's going to be like inspecting your filter, inspecting this and that. You can do that yourself. Pretty easy stuff, or the dealership will really do that for free, but they list a whole bunch of things in that service so they can charge you $400 or $500 for the service. But the bulk of what they're actually going to be doing, the actual maintenance they're going to be doing in that service, is just your oil change and your spark plugs. So I'm going to show you how to do the spark plugs today, save you a whole bunch of money on that service. First thing is you got to pull this cover off so you can get to everything. This is a distributorless ignition system. Older engines have a single ignition coil that fires your spark, and that spark goes to a distributor that, like the name implies, distributes that spark to whichever cylinder needs to be firing at the moment. Modern engines, like anything built pretty much after 2000, is going to have a distributorless system, which means each cylinder has its own coil. So here's the coil right here. It's as simple as that. And there's no wire or anything. Right underneath the coil is the connector to the spark plug, and then the spark plug itself. And there's a connector right up at the top, right here. You just push in that tab. It's a little awkward, but see, there's a tab right here. And you just compress that, you wiggle this thing out. And there it is. Okay? And that comes off, and then you remove this one bolt, and this whole thing will come out. Now this is going to be a 10mm bolt. Go ahead and remove it by hand. And now this should have a little bit of resistance, but just twist it and pull straight out. Now be careful here, because sometimes this can actually break, just like with older spark plug wires. It'll get really stuck onto the spark plug itself, and if you pull too hard at an angle, you can break them off. And there you are breaking a spark plug wire, which isn't the end of the world. They're not too expensive. If you break this, you got to buy a whole new coil, and that is not particularly cheap. Now for removing the actual spark plug, I highly recommend one of these spark plug sockets. It's just a 5/8 regular socket, deep socket, but it also has, if I flip it over here, it's got a rubber gasket inside that grabs onto the spark plug. Spark plug socket is just one of those tools that seems a little bit gimmicky, but it is definitely worth your investment. It's not much more expensive, and it means you don't have to fish a spark plug out of the tube with pliers after you've gotten it broken loose. Now you'll see, broke this loose, and once it's unscrewed all the way, all I have to do is pull the spark plug threads are quite long. So, ludicrous amount of turning to get this loose. But I would resist the impulse to use any kind of air tool. Anyway, once you've got it all the way loose with a spark plug socket, the whole thing just pulls right out and stays captured in the socket, which is fantastic. So there's the old plug. Okay, so here's a better look at the old plug. And then the number is SK20HR11. Here's my new plug, SK20HR11. It's pre-gapped. And that's what the iridiums look like. Now, before I put this in, I highly recommend always getting a bit of anti-seize. And you don't need to be thick with this. In fact, don't. You just get a little bit on the threads, and I start closer to the end and put most of it there, because that will start to, it'll leave some of itself behind on the threads of the actual engine. So as you start threading this in, some of this will squeeze back up here and get these remaining threads. If you goop it on, then it gets everywhere and this stuff is messy. But it provides a really nice benefit when you go to remove the spark plug next time. It won't have welded itself into the engine, and it'll definitely come out. Makes the next person's job easier, or yours if you keep this thing forever, like you could with one of these 4Runners. And I like to, you could take all these out and replace them all at once. I like to do it one at a time and then get the coil back in and move on to the next one. Here's another place where these spark plug sockets really come into their own. On the way back in, you don't have to just drop the plug down the tube and have a chance that it's gonna hit the side and change the gapping on the plug or something like that. So again, simple little tool, worth the money to buy. Now, just thread this in all the way until it seats, and then with spark plugs, they have a crush washer on the end that is going to give you just a little bit of resistance until it crushes all the way, and then it's not going to want to turn much at all. Do not crank spark plugs. It's always anywhere from a half a turn to a full turn, and that's it. That's really all it takes to seat them. Once you feel that change in resistance, come to a stop. So here we go. We're going to do quarter a turn at a time. Felt almost nothing there. Another quarter turn, and it's giving me resistance. That last quarter, let me set this up so I can actually grab this wrench better. There we go. I'm feeling sustained resistance, so I can keep turning. And then on that last one, so that makes a full turn. On that last one, it started to really stiffen up. So you just stop. That way you know it's all the way seated. All right, there's the new plug installed at the bottom of the hole. Now it's time to put your coilover back on. Get this connector out of the way. Just pop that down. Sorry. Do things one-handed, and then clip this connector back on the top right there. And then align this bolt hole. There it is. Put your bolt back in. Snug it up. Just a little bit. You really don't need much torque at all on these. And now we'll go on to the other two. So the next one is right here, that you can see. And then the last one on this side is hiding back here. Let's see if I can show you with the camera. A little bit better. There it is. So that one's probably going to be the most difficult to get to, just because it's in an awkward spot. But we're pretty fortunate for this vehicle that all of them are reachable without taking any other parts off, at least as far as I know. This side, those all look like they're going to be pretty easy to reach, and on the other side, here's the far back one. Here's the next one, and oh no, I'm sorry. Here's the far back one, just oriented a little bit differently. So that one's easy to reach than this one, and then this one right here. So those are all going to be really easy to get to. This side even easier than the other side. So I'll go through them, and if one of them causes me more trouble than I anticipate at the moment, I'll film that part and let you all see it. Okay, the second plug went smoothly. Two things I'd like to note at this point. First, it is a little bit more difficult as I expected to get that last coil over and plug out, just because there's some tubes here, some heater tubes that you have to snake through, but it's really not that bad, not much harder than the other ones. Second thing is, if you, like me, have an extension that doesn't, it's just a ball connector, and it doesn't lock into your spark plug socket, on the way back in, it's a good idea not to put the spark plug all the way seated in the spark plug socket like that, because it can be pretty difficult. You know, once you've threaded it down all the way, when you pull on the end of the extension might just pop out and it leaves your socket down in there and you got to fish it out. It's kind of a pain. So on the way back in, I'd recommend just barely seating the socket like that into the spark plug, the spark plug into the socket. Just, you know, one click, maybe two, so that it's not all the way down in there. You still have plenty of overlap between the socket and the end of the spark plug nut to drive it in. It doesn't take that much torque, so it's really not a big deal. Even if you barely have it in there like that, it's still gonna have plenty of grip and torque to be able to torque this down the small amount you're gonna be torquing it. So that's what I'd recommend. That's what I've been doing, and it's been a lot easier. I'm not fishing spark plug sockets out anymore. So that's the next tip. All right, I know I just finished saying I like to do these one at a time so nothing gets mixed up, and I did on the other side, but on this side, it's just so easy to get to, nice and spread out, that I decided to give myself a little bit of assembly line efficiency and just take all the bolts out and take each of these connectors off, because there's really no way you're gonna accidentally hook this connector in over here or this one or vice versa. So it's pretty simple to take all the bolts out and disconnect all the connectors all in one go. However, you still could mix up your coils. So either take them all out now and set them aside so that you can put them back, you know, set them up in order so that you can put them back in the exact same order, or just take one out at a time so that you know that you're not gonna interswitch them. And you might ask, does it matter? Does it matter if I switch this coil from here to here? Probably not, but I like things to stay matched up. Who knows, it might work in that cylinder, but it's on the verge of going out, and you switch it to another cylinder and something's just different enough, it causes a problem. I like things to stay together, so I'm gonna do it all this way. You can mix them and match them if you want. I'd advise against it, but can't really tell you that it's gonna cause a problem. Just not probably the best practice. All right, let's finish up this side. All right, guys, well, that was it for this project. Hope you liked it. Hope you learned something. As always, like and subscribe if you got anything out of this video or you like how I do things. I don't know what my next project's going to be yet. Could be some around the house maintenance. Maybe it'll be another thing to buy and fix and flip. If you have any recommendations, something you'd like to see, another golf cart, go-kart, quad, dirt bike, old car, let me know, and maybe I'll keep an eye out for it. Talk to you all soon, hopefully. Bye.